Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Success in Construction webinar series. Today, we're going to be walking you through how you can maximize revenue with ProScope's advanced revenue management strategies. So, before we start, just a quick introduction to myself. My name is Sandra Misbah. I'm a solutions consultant with ProScope/NetSuite. I'm going to be walking you through the demo today and throughout this webinar. So, a quick walk through the agenda for today. We're going to be walking you through what are common revenue management challenges that we see quite frequently, and then we're going to walk you through what advanced revenue management solutions ProScope can offer you to overcome these challenges. That will be followed by a live demo, and then we'll have some time at the end for discussions and any questions you may have around the demo or the webinar in general. So, starting off with the most common challenges that are faced when it comes to revenue management. The first one is scope creep. So, if you think about a project that you've got and you potentially add any more extra tasks, or you've got some goals that need to be added to your project without any proper planning, that can really lead to higher costs and make it harder to meet your revenue goals. The next challenge that we usually see is inconsistent revenue recognition. So, if you're not recognizing your revenue in a consistent manner, this is really going to confuse your performance tracking and really harm your decision making in the future. The next challenge we see a lot is complex contract structures. So if you've got complex contract structures and you're not managing them properly, this can really cause issues when it comes to tracking and fulfilling these contract terms in a proper manner. Next, we have compliance with accounting standards. So if you do have a proper revenue management process in place, that will really ensure that your business meets legal requirements and builds trust with yours. Now, last but not least, we've got delayed invoicing and cash flow issues. So, by not having a proper revenue management process in place and leading to delayed invoicing and cash flow issues, that will really affect your project's performance and it will delay your project from a financial perspective. So we've had a look at what the most common challenges are when it comes to revenue management. We'll now have a look at how ProScope can help you overcome these challenges and support you around each one of these challenges. So starting off with how you can avoid the scope creep challenge. So what ProScope can do is provide real-time tracking of your project changes and any associated costs. So you won't have to worry about updating any of these changes manually because it all happens in real time as you're going throughout your project. It all updates in the background for you. Automated adjustments to contracts and revenue forecasts. So you won't have to worry about adjusting your contracts manually because ProScope will also automate that for you. So it will save you a lot of time and make it more efficient as you're going through that process. ProScope will also provide you with automated revenue recognition, so you won't have to do that process manually. It can be automated and it's also quite flexible with regards to how you want to track your revenue, whether by milestone or percentage of completion. It will also help you manage any complex contracts, so you'll have a centralized contract management area with full visibility of all your complex contracts, and you'll be able to keep track of them a lot easier than doing it manually on spreadsheets. It will also simplify handling of multi-phase or multi-contract projects, which get quite complex if you're doing it manually. Now, the next point I want to talk about is ensuring compliance. Now, ProScope can support you with built-in compliance, which are with industry standards, as well as automatic revenue calculations, which are also in line with accounting standards. And last but not least, improving cash flow and invoicing. Now, ProScope can really provide you with real-time revenue insights to support faster invoicing. So when you've got that real-time visibility that's been happening in the background as you're going through your projects, you'll be able to invoice a lot faster than going through that process manually using lots of different spreadsheets and messing around all your different work. Now, the last point is enhanced cash flow, which provides you with automated billing, which is told to your project progress. So you'll be able to keep track of what your automated billing is progressing throughout your project. Now, before we dive into the platform and have a look at the demo, I just want to walk you through this high-level end-to-end process of revenue management from a ProScope/NetSuite perspective. So starting off from the configuration standpoint, we're going to start off by creating a custom revenue event and a percentage of cost completion revenue rule as well. Once we've created both of them, what will happen is we're going to assign both of these to the items that have been added or included into that sales order, whether that's one item or a group of items. Once that's been added, what will happen next is it will generate our revenue element for these items on that sales order. Now, from a ProScope standpoint, what will happen is we can leverage the update project actuals, which will update our custom revenue event for the percentage of cost completion on that project at a specific point in time. And then a revenue plan will be generated based off that revenue event. And then from there, it's scheduling our NetSuite journals as usual. So we've had a look at what the high level overview of revenue management looks like. We'll now look into how that looks like on the platform and we'll dive into the actual demo at the minute. So I'm now logged in as a admin on ProScope/NetSuite, and like we've mentioned before, you can have a number of different users to log in as, but because we're talking about finance today, I've decided to log in as an admin user. So throughout this webinar, we've talked about a lot of project management focused areas. We've looked at procurement, subcontract management, billing and invoicing, and we've looked at reporting from a ProScope standpoint with regards to ProScope/NetSuite. So our focus today is going to be all around revenue recognition and how we can recognize our revenue in a more efficient way, and how I'm going to show you how you can easily manage your revenue management process using ProScope/NetSuite today. But before we do that, I just want to give you a quick walkthrough as to what my dashboard layout looks like and quick refresher or a quick introduction for those who haven't seen ProScope previously. So starting off on my dashboard, you can see what I've got set up is this project launchpad. Now this project launchpad is actually giving me all the projects that are currently live on my account, but depending on the permissions you want to set up on your account, you can limit this view to projects that you're actually PM on and you're actually working on or have access to. Now, looking at this project launchpad, what makes it really useful for me is that as soon as I log into my account, I've got this actions button on each one of my projects. You can see that I can go ahead and put together a budget for that project. Can go ahead and start purchasing some requisitions for that project. I can generate purchase orders, bill my customer directly from here. So there's a number of different actions that we've gone into a bit more detail throughout that series of our webinar. And on the side here, you can see that you can keep track of what your billing progress and your cost progress for each one of these projects are as well. Now scrolling to the side, you can see that I've got a number of reminders on the side which are interactive. I can easily just go into that, drill into each one of these and start the process of completing these tasks that are meant to be completed. I can have any alerts on here that are key for myself. And again, these are just examples of how I've set up my dashboard. So scrolling to the bottom of my dashboard, what you can also have on here is some financial reports that are key for yourself. So it could be that as soon as you log in, you want to keep track of how you're doing with your project from a budget standpoint. How is your estimated budget against what your planned cost was, what your committed costs are so far, what your cost to date is. So you'll have that visibility as soon as you log into your account. You've got that full visibility of how you're doing financially with all your projects. And in addition to that, I've got some shortcuts on the side that are key for myself. They are areas that I navigate to on a more frequent basis. So I'm not really interested in going through a number of different tabs to reach these areas. All I want to do is just hit that button on my dashboard and get to these areas that I work on a more frequent basis. So that was a quick walk through what the dashboard looks like. What we're going to do now is we're going to start the process of revenue management and how we can get that set up so we can start recognizing revenue on a number of different projects. So starting off from a configuration standpoint, we have gone ahead and created our custom revenue event trigger on our account. What we've named it is ProScope percentage of cost completion, but you can rename it to whatever suits you. And then you can see that we've checked the box for it to be based off a percentage of completion basis. And then we've gone into our revenue recognition rules, and this is where you can create new revenue recognition rules or have a look at what your existing ones are. But in this case, we have gone ahead and created our new revenue recognition rule for this instance. And you really want to have the start and end date for that revenue recognition rule based off the event date for that specific instance. So if we were to go into a sales order for a project that's already been set up and have a look at what's included in that sales order. So if we were to scroll down, I can see that I've got one line item down here included in that sales order. Now I'm going to drill into that item and have a look at the accounting settings for that item. Now looking into my accounts that have been set up for that specific item, I can see which revenue accounts have been set up for that specific item. In addition to that, I can also see what my revenue recognition rules that have been set up for that specific item. So if I scroll down, you can see that my revenue recognition rule is the percentage of cost completion that I've created at the start. So you can see that creating revenue plans based on that revenue recognition rule that I've set up at the start of this webinar. So if we were to go back to our sales order and scroll down to our related records, we'll have our standard revenue arrangement, which will have our revenue element for that specific line item on that sales order. Now, if we were to go back to our specific project that we've been working on and scroll down all the way to our financial setup on our project records, you can see that I've got a number of revenue arrangements down here, and these are the ProScope custom revenue events that are being created, which are actually your actual cost to date divided by your planned costs. Now, once you've got that specific percentage, what will happen in the background is that it will multiply it by your contract value and determine what revenue you've earned so far. So we've had a look at how we can configure our revenue management process on ProScope/NetSuite, and we've had a look at how that process actually works, and we've walked through that full process. But how do we keep track of revenue that's being recognized on a project as we're going through the project? How do we keep track of our project financials as we're going through the project? So directly from our project records, we're going to go into our project financials tab. Now, what this is going to do for us is it's going to give us that full overview of what our billing and revenue overview is, what our project cost overview is, and what our as sold and variations are broken down, as well as our as sold and variations at the same time as an average. So looking at the top, I can see what my revenue recognized value is, what my planned revenue is. I can keep an eye on that being updated in the background automatically as live data as I'm going through the project. So all the processes that I'm going through as I'm going through purchasing some requisitions for the project, as I'm receiving these items at site, as I'm marking them as being consumed. And we've had a look at how that process looks like throughout the procurement webinars previously. So as we're going through all that, I can keep an eye on all of my project financials because I don't need to do any updates manually in here. It all updates automatically. It's all real life data that updates in real time in the background as I'm going through my project. So I can always go into my project financials and keep track of what my planned purchases are, what my planned labor is, and then what my actual labor is and what my actual purchases are, again, as well as my planned revenue and my revenue that's been recognized. And then scrolling down, I can see what my as sold revenue and margin values are, as well as any variations that have come up throughout the project, what that revenue is for that as well as what my margins are for that. And of course, once you've got your planned values in, as well as what your actual values are, once you've marked these items as received and you've consumed these items, you'll have your actual value and against your planned value, and you'll be able to get what your percentage of cost completion is for your project as well. Now, in the case that we've incurred some more costs on the project and you want to trigger the process, what you can do is leverage the update project actuals functionality to update your project actuals for your projects. Now, this can be done in bulk. We're not expecting you to go through this one by one, so you can go ahead and update project actuals for a number of different projects at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and select the project I've been working on throughout this webinar. All you need to do is check the box for the project that you're working on. Again, it could be that you want to update project actuals for a number of different projects at the same time. So it's quite easy and flexible to mark a number of different projects and update them all at the same time. You can also adjust the period that you want to update the project actuals for. So it's quite easy to scroll through the periods that you've got available and select the one you're trying to update the project actuals for, and then hit that project update project actuals activity button at the top. So that's really everything I wanted to show today on this demo. I hope you found it useful, and I'm just going to go back to my slides now. So we're now open to any questions or any discussion you may have around what you've seen throughout this webinar or throughout the demo that I've just showed you. So we'll have like 5 minutes to go through any questions you may have and just drop them in the box on the chat box, and we can get back to you on that. So this brings us to the end of this webinar, and I just want to thank everyone for participating and watching this webinar. If you would like to find out more about revenue recognition or any of the other webinars that we've had throughout this series, please drop me an email or check out our website or connect with us on LinkedIn as well. You can also find recordings of our previous webinars and much more on our YouTube channel, so go ahead and check these out. And thank you so much for watching again, and see you soon.